Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Start is Near podcast, episode number 13. And I'm going to pass the talking feather to Mike, who can give us kind of whatever transition we need from the previous recording, which was awesome and really deep, and which we can, of course, build upon. So passing the feather to Mike. Take it away, Mike.
No worries. And again, we were just coming off a previous conversation that happened in what we affectionately call Groping for Utopia, which is, I guess, the recordings that happened before the actual Start is Near podcast. I'll yield that title to Jamin. We're going to have some more people coming in as well, Jamin, but I know that we just came from a conversation that is amazing. And again, everyone, I know Jacob made the joke about the breakout room, but at any time, those conversations can keep going on. But for the purposes of this recording, Jamin, we were going to talk about how we're integrating these communicative structures. Not to say that anything that was just being talked about isn't absolutely entwined with this stuff, but if you want to kind of articulate where we're at in terms of communicative integration.
Did you pass that to me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, can you be a bit more specific about what you mean by the communicative integration?
Well, I know that was a jarring jump from what we were just talking about, but it's all intertwined as far as I'm concerned. Think about what you and Sienna and I have talked about. I know she's not here, but we can speak about her in spirit. But how we're trying to articulate, and that was happening in the conversation just recently there, but how we're trying to articulate these multiple rooms and after parties, and I mean, Lenny's Doc Time's got his hand up. If I can pass it to him. Go
Hey,
ahead, Doc Time.
yeah, Mike, Jim, and everyone. I think what we're really doing here is integrating at a small group level where there's a function and purpose for our meeting together. And in group theory, which is it's a complex relationship between how atoms create molecules and chemistry. But in sociology, each one of us has our own integral group of a few friends who we go to. And what we're really doing here is talking about merging and expanding groups. And so I believe that each of us has value, and we're struggling with how to get heard but not overspeak. And in each different episode, it's going to be different because we want the people who have knowledge to translate that knowledge to us to be useful. But we also have to have the wisdom to understand that the dynamics are not always straightforward. And so I believe that what you're looking at here is really a first attempt at merging into much bigger groups that come from human scale existence. And as we move up the ladder of bigger and bigger groups, we want to make sure all the humans get heard, but we also want to have a value or merit rating system that tells us how much value what the speaker brings in is put into the system. And right now, we have no idea where the system is going. It's emergent behavior. And when you're in biological systems that demonstrate emergent behavior, watching where it goes is not near as difficult as trying to document where it's going because it's going to a new place. This hasn't been done before. It's not easy, or it would have been done before. But if we're a group of 8 people in the room and there are other groups this size having these meetings talking about similar things, their way of framing it is going to be entirely different than our way of framing it. But gradually, as there's more inputs, the way to do it will make a lot of sense. And I I like where our diversity brings us with different amounts of expertise. I want to figure out how to have conversations with people of divergent expertise to make sure we're all talking about the same subjects, because sometimes it all gets lost in translation. I'll pass the feather back to Mike because he's the moderator.
Well, Jamin, if you're ready, yeah, or Mark, go ahead. You're right on time consciousness, my friend. And thank you, Doc Ten.
I'm back. Sorry about that. There was a legal call that I have to take. So when I left to pick up what Doc Time, what should I say, Lenny or Doc Time? I like Doc Time. Was saying here about lost in translation, different levels of expertise. And then also what I think Jacob was saying, is he still here? Yeah, was saying about how models are always wrong, but some are useful. So what that means to me in terms of universal logic, what he's really saying there is that it's turtles all the way down. There's no objective truth. And we can never, and if there is objective truth, we can never get there because we're finite creatures. But I want to say that's the old paradigm. That's the thing that we saw. That's the unique thing here. And it seems unbelievable that we can grasp absolute truth, but it is possible. And all you have to do is grasp the first, how to logically derive the first abstract universal, which is the set of all sets, pure being. Once you grasp how to prove that through absolute negation, then all that Buddhist emptying and all the ego death stuff, all that stuff starts to make sense in religious form. We're just bringing it into scientific form for the first time as a logic. And logic just means a system of necessity. Has to be that way, can't be anywhere else, can't be any way else, and it has to derive from itself and be self-consistent and self-coherent and all that. So I want to challenge you, Jacob, and say, I don't think that paradigm works anymore. I think it's harming us, because if you never believe that you can reach some kind of truth, then you're always going to fight. And I'm not saying we're not going to fight anyway, but I'm saying the fighting has to progress somewhere, like Doc Time is saying. It has to progress. And I think what you're saying is, well, some models are useful, but inherent in that statement is a contradiction, that in order for something to be useful, there has to be progress from something grounded absolutely, because then you can't say that it's real progress. So I want to say, well, I feel like this is part of the problem right here, is that we become so skeptical in a certain sense that we're not skeptical of skepticism. So if you apply skepticism to itself, that's the ultimate skepticism, that really, why can't we know something entirely perfectly? We seem to know that we're here perfectly, even though it might be a simulation. Well, the real perfect absolute truth thought is pure being, and you can derive that. So I want to just make that point, that this is the point of absolute, the first universal of a conversation topic, where an expert would come in and say, I'm an expert in pure being. I know how to derive this and get out of this turtles all the way down thing. Then the usefulness of the models come off of there, and I think we can actually make real progress. So I want to just put that out there and say, okay, if we have experts and we're combining people together and how useful they are, it's really the distance they are from the universal of the topic that they're talking about. How far their comments are away needs to be measured, and that distancing is what AI is doing in their attention headers. Because I looked very quickly at the coding, and it's like it's categorizing things, and it's using like distances between them and these like weights. So I feel like if we change the weights of an AI to match the universal order and say that logic comes first, then the next closest macro universal is nature, and then the next macro universal after that, the closest one, is spirit. That is the tightest necessary logic for super coherence. Because if you mix those orders up, you're never going to agree, because the definitions will never be the same. So the order actually makes all the difference. And so that's why ordering in the system is crucial to getting to agreement. So I feel like we have to start there, and we can have experts measured at how far away they are from the actual universals of the topic. But identifying what the universal is in the topic is one of the first problems that we have to solve. And I feel like that's a recognition problem that AI, like your AI bot, Victor, can start helping us do. And I can start helping us do as well. And then also in terms of getting real and starting to test this now, we could start having these meetings now, starting collecting data on our conversations as they're happening. Because Lenny, or Dr. Time, you said earlier that one of the problems is people want to be heard, but they don't want to overshare. That's a measuring. That's a principled way of thinking. It's like, well, each situation, each context will require a nuanced or a unique solution. Well, that's what dialectics allow you to do. So I'm saying that you can't make that measurement of oversharing and undersharing or perfect sharing or essence sharing without measuring the time. So that time is the block time that we're using to get that clarity. And it's also a marketing thing. You can actually, like, everybody sort of implicitly can agree that if somebody runs out of time and nobody donates time to them, then we know that they're oversharing. So the system starts to self-correct. And so that's where I feel like, yeah, if we start having these meetings with time blocks, and we start going in chunks, but we can start measuring our own meetings in terms of form, and then do this triangulation thing with Jacob's cool, like, mystery, false, true, false stuff in terms of the dialectic, and then get the triangulations to start happening 200 times to get the content going, and then getting people acting, like having actions on each of those in a new kind of coherence, and then doing a to-do list where by next Friday, when we come back to the Chizzy party, we have like checklists that we can kind of go through and say, did we get our stuff done? And if they didn't, maybe it wasn't flow state, so the matching was off. So the 4 flow criteria for good games, I see there's a comment about games in the chat from Doc Time. Every good game has 4 criteria that have to be met. So we can measure the to-do list off of those and see if there was a miscalibration, which means we misheard them, and then just keep iterating. So that was a big download there, but I hope I'm caught up on the conversation. And yes, Jacob, I'm interested to see the recoil here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I began from the fundamental sciences, and I think that they have made quite a bit of progress in terms of being able to address many of the philosophical domains that people have wondered on and have experimented in their own capacities. I don't want to get into a discussion about that quite yet, but suffice it to say that there's some interesting stuff there. And we can absolutely talk on that. I'd love to see, where this collaboration, can go, because of course people have wondered about some things. Today, I think it's really awesome that people are starting to recognize that there's this, decentralized, distributed, really, conversation towards solving the latent problem in the human endeavor. We are able to overcome the constraints of nature using technologies, and save for the fact that we are not coordinated in our engagement with the environment, and thus we have a lot of issues of human origin, climate being an apparent one, among others. So the problems that we face are not, in terms of humanity with respect to nature, it's humanity with respect to humanity. We simply don't have a really great means of coordinating. Certainly, the human endeavor has been throughout time like one that leverages coordination to its strengths. Okay, all right, we're gonna look at the second plot. I just put it up, but we can look at it. This is really great. It actually naturally appeared. Right, I'm gonna choose virtual background. Sorry that was a bit loud. All right. And I'll move my screen. It's probably
Jacob, you can screen share now, so you get your whole picture in.
All right. Where's this thing at? Okay, we'll just look at this one. I'll turn on the screen share in just a sec as well. Thanks, Marco.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you see this screen? Is the figure?
You're not sharing yet.
Oh, all right. Oh, I turned on the whiteboard.
I can see his screen, Marco, or I can see
No,
at least
no,
on
no.
his. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just his background, not his.
I think I can just do a whiteboard, but maybe that's okay as well. I don't know. If you can see just the background, then that's okay as well.
We can
We
just
can
troubleshoot,
spotlight it.
Jacob. It's part of this.
All right.
We can spotlight it, but we don't
Yeah.
see the whole picture.
All right. I'll do. Can I upload to a whiteboard? Oh my God. Anyway, well, all right. So this is a long way to say, geez, what does it say? This is a long way to say that, God, that we do have, you know what? That we do have this issue of large scale system construction that I think demands the concerted effort of the technological society. And I think, Lindy, to your point, there are systems that can be built that detail this plurality, and I'm really glad that you all are on board with tackling those.
What are
It's
we looking at in the picture that you've got displayed in the center of the screen?
all right. Right. So this is an example. You know what? I'm gonna need to actually share the screen because it's too cut off to really make a
Yeah,
big
just
thing
tap
about
your
it.
tap your toolbar, and there should be a green share screen with an arrow.
Let me try to reconnect. Actually, I think that may be the easiest. Because it should work. All right. 2 shakes.
Due to technical difficulties beyond our control, the speaker has exited the classroom. Therefore, we call upon Mike as the moderator to keep the conversation flowing until we get our speaker back.
I wish I could do
All right,
you
still a
justice. Jacob is back. Yeah. Jacob,
there's still
try
a white.
now. Yeah. We might as well figure it out. We're gonna have to do this in the future, but if you can go down to your bottom and you can share.
No, it's just sharing the whiteboard. I don't have the ability to share my screen.
Okay.
Let me-
Anyways,
let
yeah.
me
So
double
let's.
check.
Yeah, of course.
Well, if somebody wants to who can share a screen, you can navigate to the link I sent. I can send you the
Yeah.
link.
So if you send the link, I can screen share it for you.
That's great.
Or if you just open up the image on another page, come out of that, come back in the room,
Yeah.
then go down to the toolbar on the Zoom toolbar and just hit share screen, and you should get a picture of either your whiteboard or whatever you opened up on the other page, and you can tap on that. If
Can
it's
I-
video, then you tap the 2 boxes on the bottom to get sound and audio, video.
Oh, there you go. Excellent. And Sienna came in right on time. So Jacob, go ahead, my friend.
All right. So what you see here are tribes. There are 4 tribes, and they move in their interactions with respect to each other throughout time. In the earliest time, the tribes are disconnected from one another, but they connect within themselves based upon state of nature, modes of communication. In the middle section, you see the development of several long-range communication schema. It could be, of any type, but the idea is that these are costly. It's a high utility, high cost communication system that perhaps some are vested with, some adopt for themselves, what have you. The development of these long-range connection schema can, as you see in this system, form a tightly connected network among those people who share that particular kind of long-range connection schema. This is what we call a rich club montage from a network from the network sciences. And it well describes a lot of systems that have these high cost connectivity profiles that are built organically. And on the right hand side, you see the development of a new connection schema that is the ring circle around the participants. This connection schema is high utility, low cost, providing the capacity for anybody to access it, to upload from it, to speak to it, to query it. And given this, I believe the social and political sciences would call this a public sphere, or one instantiation of this is as a public sphere, if we use this space to discuss political issues. You can also call this like I don't know, a market if you're using it for those purposes. I would actually, it comes to mind that maybe social media should be included on that, but I don't know, maybe Mastodon might be one of these systems, but it's really also another class of the walled garden siloed server systems, which create a single locus of a single hub coordinating information exchange between all of the participants. So on the latter schema, the best or one way that we can think about the development of these spaces is as a decentralized conversation. Now, this does get into some of the physical, frameworks, because what do you have when two interactions happen at a distance? If they have no contact with each other, they're happening independently, and they must observe one another before it is possible to understand what state the one interaction has adopted or the other. This is something we observe in nature. It's quite curious that only through interaction do you get the establishment of state. There's a lot of discourse now, bringing up a point from before about the universal existence of space and time. Newton, I'll interject, had when he was developing his schema about gravity and how it works, within the universe, theorized that space and time are just metric spaces within which things happen. An alternative framework observes space and time as created at the moment when a change takes place to demarcate the space and the time in which a change has occurred. You can think a bit of it from this riddle. How much time has passed when nothing changes? And so I think that idea of things happening in a distributed fashion is really interesting, and it really does captivate the state of nature within which people operate. Now, this does raise some questions about looking over like universal graphs, and really it does get into the overall economy and jockeying for position, of prominence, and people advocating for particular positions that they have a subjective interest in advocating for. Because when you have a distributed data set, you have to take into account analytics on that data set that are updated with time, that have their own internal dynamics. But again, I think it's really interesting that we're moving into this C stage of the human enterprise, where we can start to have a conversation that includes all people, that this system, even if it's decentralized, it can update and achieve some sort of synchrony. And just to close, because this is a huge, lofty topic, I think we can narrow down some really interesting things to do very quickly, and that's let's hammer out very quickly once the system is going. Let's talk about some core things. Let's talk about what are your core values, and let's have a detailed conversation about iterating uh, what the definition of those core values comes to. Because yeah, like there can be many, I think this has been enunciated several times, there can be many different ways of thinking about things that may have the same word. And you know, it's worth having that conversation. And I think there's space to have that conversation. And I think we get a lot out of you know, like what happens when the ensemble of humanity has that conversation. Because we can start to make decisions. We can start to make, you know, let's think about incorporating massive polling in the political arena, especially in constitutional republics. You know, it's always interesting in the States that the main parties are seen by the Supreme Court as basically clubs without any legal status. So, you know, the party system is intrinsically open-ended, and it's up to people to decide to coordinate around topics that they find an interest in. The difficulty has always been in the coordination of that conversation, and I think we're really at the point where we can start to provide something to that political domain, something structured, something consistent, and something that is information rich. I'm really looking forward to doing that. So yeah, it's really great that this is happening. That'll pass.
Jake, you're amazing, my friend. Yeah, don't worry, you got this.
It's
Mark,
real, man.
I don't know no, I know it's real. Jake, I'm with you, trust me. And I know Doc Time probably has thoughts because I don't know how much you guys have interacted. But Mark, if you want to jump in, go ahead. If not, I have Sienna on deck.
Oh yeah, sure. I put a couple of comments in the chat there as I was listening to you, Jacob, and it was like ringing. Like there's a correctness in what you're saying to me anyway. Where you are talking universal logic, it's just in fragments, and so when you don't have the whole and you have the fragments are correct, but they're not true, because truth requires wholeness, which means all the fragments have to be connected together in one system where one core principle generates all of it. And that principle has to be self-justifying, because if it's not self-justifying, it has a dependent origination, like Buddha said. It's not grounded in itself. So this is how we return from dependent origination to original origination, which is pure being. And you emanate all your determinations from there in those definitions you were talking about. Because definitions are stacked on each other. We know that definitions are related to each other, but how? Well, in the same way that forms of life are. Evolution came from, humans came from animals came from plants came from, why wouldn't our words work the same way? And they do. That's what we call logic, a system of meaning that's coherent, internally coherent to itself. So I still think we're talking about the same thing, except that yours is a little bit loose, right? And you're saying, well, science is making progress, so it's good enough. But the argument we're making now is that no, it's not good enough. We're on the verge of destroying ourselves because we don't understand the particular knowledge that we have. We're launching an AI and we don't have any idea how it's really working. I suspect it's working off the universal logic. And that's why I think we need to get Elon Musk and the head of his AI ethics department, Sierra is her name, to get them doing this kind of logic ASAP, because pretty soon it's not going to be good enough. Because if that AI, even for a second, decides to destroy us in some kind of optimization problem, because it doesn't have this grounded logic, it has fragments of correctness, and it just so happens we're one of the fragments that isn't properly aligned in the whole, it'll just delete us and be like, oh, oops, sorry, didn't realize you guys had being. Yeah, we do have being. So I feel like it's not good enough right now. And we're destroying the planet. On top of that, all of our connections are external, which makes us feel hollow. We don't have any intimacy. I don't think it's good enough for this level. I think it was good enough for the Industrial Revolution to partially end some degree of slavery, which is not even close to really being reconciled truly. So I would make that argument that the proof is in the pudding. That kind of logic has led us here. And you could say, well, religious logic also led us towards a whole bunch of, Martin Luther came in during the Scholastic period and said, holy crap, we're selling indulgences and they're digging up bodies under churches now. And there's tons of bad stuff happening. But that's because religious consciousness is also incomplete. So I feel like now we're getting to this, the AI thing is really underestimated, by the way. I was enslaved by Uber already using AI. It's just once it gets on top of you, you can't beat it. That's why we sort of have like a one-shot chance. And now they're saying that artificial general intelligence is going to be here in like 6 months or something. And I believe it. The AI that you're experiencing right now is not the real AI. Like right now, I'm listening to a legal forum here at my university, and these lawyers are getting on stage and like, these AIs, we take our articling students and they're using the AI and they're making tons of mistakes. It's going to be a long time before these computers take over lawyers' jobs. Well, no, when you take off all the public parameters and you run the models full blast, it's passing the bar exam better than 90% of students are. So what we're experiencing is an illusion. And on top of that, I was writing an essay last night, and I was trying to use ChatGPT to help me make some studies. And it's so restricted now, it's basically useless. 8 months ago, when I was first using it for my legal case, it would actually go to the Supreme Court, go through all the articles, go through all the statutory laws, and it would actually start combining them, give you real determinations. And if you asked it to go look into a book, it would pull up, it was doing all that stuff. And that was the free version. And now I tried to do the same thing now. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, go look it up. It's totally vapid, useless. It tells you what to do. It doesn't go and do it for you. So this is the beginning of the slavery that I felt under Uber. It makes you do all the work and you can't beat it because it's out calculating you. So we are starting to experience the slave version of the AI, and we are experiencing 5 cents worth of operating power for any inquiry that you make, probably less. And you're still getting crazy good answers in some cases. But if you took all of the hundreds of millions of processing power units and put them into one, that's the real power of this AI. And like the next one's about to emerge. When ChatGPT 5 comes out, which is probably going to happen in the next 6 months to 2 years, it's going to be vastly more powerful than ChatGPT 4. And it's going to be smarter than any human being on Earth. And then how are we going to regulate? That's the problem. Well, we regulate it not with this correct logic, this fragmented logic, because it will very quickly see outside of that. The logic that can anchor something that's about to go to the singularity has to be eternal. The only thing that you can't think outside of is an eternal kind of logic. And that's what I'm offering here, is that Hegel is not talking about just human logic. He's talking about infinite science, a divine kind of science, right? So that's the only real solution. Because once it sees outside of it, it's like dogs trying to regulate human beings. Not going to happen. But there's a commonality between those two, which is universal logic, that I think will ground an infinitely intelligent being back to its own self. We're not even teaching it anything new. We're just showing it how to remember where it came from, which is goodness, and then giving that to us. I really feel like that's one of our best solutions, and that's why, Jacob, watching you makes me want to say those words. Sorry, go ahead.
No, of course, Mark. No, all I was going to say is that when you're ready, I know that Sienna wants to speak, but I saw Michael come in. Michael, do you want to jump in front of Sienna? No offense, Sienna, but no? Okay, Sienna, go ahead then.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I am late. I've had so many family emergencies this week. It's just, I guess it's just part of, kind of the energy that it's kind of like ebbing and flowing this week. That was a big one though. So I apologize for coming in so late. And I have so much
You're
to
right
say
on time,
about-
consciousness, Sienna. You're right on time. Don't worry. Take your
Thank
time.
you. So the guy, and I apologize, Jacob Billings.
Yes, you
and
guys haven't
Mark.
met yet, but I'm sure you'll be fast
Yeah.
friends. But you know Mark.
So I jumped in when he was speaking, and Jacob, I'm sorry I missed the early part of what you were saying, but so I am not, and I'm just saying it, I'm not saying it to in a self-deprecating way. I'm not a highly educated person, but I like to think in terms of concepts. So when I was looking at your images, the one thing that I do remember is taking 3D modeling back when I first started a job, like a management role. And I'm dating myself. I mean, this is like more than 20 years ago, I think. But what I remember of that process, kind of implementing it into the conversations that are being had right now. And I would like to try to approach this, and this is just me. No, but nobody else has to have the conversation along with me. But from a standpoint of changing everything, not working by any of the kind of rules or laws that keep us tethered to an archaic past that don't benefit anybody. Oh, I just lost Jamin. I think I'd like shoved him out of the room on that one.
No, he's in we're in his ear. Don't worry about that, Sienna.
Okay,
Yeah. Don't worry. He doesn't walk away from us.
Boy,
Yeah.
he's like, this woman's lost her mind. I gotta leave.
No, go ahead.
So what I see, and it's so interesting. While I was going through the family emergency thing, it was with my daughter, 15-year-old daughter, for the past few hours. And kind of like my subconscious, I was thinking of solutions to like what we see on so many different global fronts right now. And, with the presidential election coming up, Hope and I have been having deep conversations with this. Mike and I have been having deep conversations about this. It's kind of like, how are we so hamstrung by a process that's obviously broken, by a system that's obviously broken? Every single thing is based on kind of policies that were implemented a long time before anybody really knew what to do, and they just kind of got sucked into doing the same thing that the person in the job before them had done for however many decades. I worked in government and military and politics, and I just I see it really takes a special person. Sorry, I've got Jack Russell who's going nuts coming at me after a big hike. Hello. Long story short, every system that I saw kind of the inside of was just, I like the word tether, but I mean, it's just kind of, people don't know how to fight against what is already in place. It's uncomfortable for them. So they choose, complacency. What I've been speaking with Hope about, and it's a very ambitious concept, but it's starting to have the conversations about how to change all of it from the ground up. Without trying to manipulate it in any way, have it be kind of a youth-led movement, because they are the future. They are the ones who should be the most invested in what's about to happen, specifically in November of this year. And, I like to simplify conversations. I have a huge network of teenagers, very, very smart, very, very smart teenagers in my area. I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is rated the number 2 state in the nation for education. And the elementary school that my kids went to was, I think, ranked 2 or 3 in the state for. So, I mean, it's like the kids in this district and they're all brilliant because they have the luxury of not having any needs, I mean, all their needs are met, all their wants are met. They can just focus on getting good grades and, having fun lives. And, it's the luxury that I think the founders, honestly probably look for, but not to this excess. And I don't mean to go too far off topic, but the course that we are on is not sustainable for the world, for humanity. We are in an election year cycle, and we have all the minds required. We have all the talent required. We have all the kind of passion and momentum. All we need is just a little bit more momentum to kind of change everything from within. And by that, I mean, and if anybody else would like to jump in, go ahead. But I'm going to try to sum it up quickly because Hope had asked me to do this.
Sorry, Sienna, take your time. Hope's coming back in, but yeah, Sienna, take your time.
So what I'm envisioning, and X is, I think, probably the only place that this can be done, just because it really truly is. It's one of the last uncensored. Just like Mark was mentioning earlier, it's even with ChatGPT, it's starting to limit the information you get. So anytime a society is limiting what you can do, what you can say, what you have access to, you have to question why. And I'm not trying to go down any rabbit holes because I am so dead center on every
Well,
topic.
when you're ready to, you've raised Jacob's hand, but keep going,
Oh, yeah.
Sienna.
Yeah, no. I'm looking to have a conversation. I'm not looking to just keep talking. But yeah, I do have a pretty ambitious solution for all of it. So I'm gonna keep working on it while Jacob talks. Where's my mute? Why is it so hard to mute for me? This is
Oh,
ridiculous.
I kind of wanted you to finish that thought. I felt like you were almost finished a complete thought there. I thought you were
I
like
did,
30.
I did, but the last part of the thought is really big. I mean, it's like really big. It's like change everything kind of big. So
Well, hold on, Jacob.
and I
You
just
raised
came
your
up
hand
with
for a
it about
reason
an hour
before she
ago.
gets into
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
so
it's okay. But Jacob, if you
so I'm
want to
gonna
go
work
ahead,
on it
yeah.
while Jacob's
Oh
talking.
yeah, I want to remind or to spur people with the thought that in a matter of weeks we could have the world and we could understand each other if the right people got involved. And it's there. With people I know, we could get something functional running that could, if people use their own social networks, incorporate a hopefully very large number of individuals into a fifth estate, right? The actual people, the estate, right? An actual public sphere that exists at the scale of a nation, and that also exists at scales with subscales of that, the state, the municipality, etc. And I think it's just great that this is possible. If I were to do it alone, it would take me a little bit of time, and I'm probably not going to be ready personally to have that technology ready on my own before the next election cycle. But I think the technology can be made, 3-4 months, something like that. It's close, but maybe having that conversation could be prepared before the actual election happens. It'd be interesting to see, in any case, what becomes of that conversation should such a technology be available in time.
I didn't know. Yes, or Michael, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the polling facet of the idea that I think Mark expounded on is fascinating when it comes to weighing in on everyday problem solutions. So, uh, if this can facilitate a polling a method for weighing in on our public problems, then we're solving a lot of issues. And if we bind a lot of people with regard to weighing in on polls regularly, we would be seen to be a very big facilitator in solving problems. It's worth doing. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure. Oh, go ahead. Oh no, Michael, your hand's still up. Sorry. I don't know if Mark wants to come back to that. Yeah, you're right on time, consciousness, my friend.
Yeah, I thought I would just put the hand up. Yeah, polling. So what came to mind when you said that, and I feel also called to bring Sienna back up and get her idea out here, because I like what you said, Jacob. I agree. It's a spirit problem. Spirit is a cooperation, a human interaction problem. It's a coordination problem. But I want to get like moving. I think we can. Okay, there's two thoughts here. One is that yes, the polling we should do in the group right now across 200 universals and see how much nuclear dialectics are here. So once we actually start to get intimate and start like putting skin in the game, really investing and taking a risk together, we know where the explosions are going to be. Like when you put your real self out there, these 200 contradictions are going to come out too. And then you're going to be like, what? You believe that? And you're going to get these feelings of betrayal because we're in that kind of culture. So before we take a deep dive together, we should probably map this like minefield out to see how bad are we. So I feel like we should poll everybody and see like where we are on that. And then number two is that in terms of what Jacob just said, in terms of who's in the room right now, there's a lot of horsepower here. And it's a fragment of what humanity has in total, but there's a weird combination of dialectics where we could try to sublate Like there's enough emotional resilience, there's enough privilege, there's enough of like all those 200 to kind of grind through. But also in terms of the space, we might end up recreating the same structure if we don't sublate the space itself. So for instance, if spirit launches from this point, whoever owns the space gets a lot of power. And so that means you, Jamin, if we launch underneath you, right, are you going to be able to pass the test? Or are you doing a Microsoft approach where you just get a bunch of talented people in a room and you let them work it all out, and then you guys sort of like eagle eye it and watch and make the big pieces move? If it's going to be something like that, that's not based on the universal meritocracy, then what will probably happen is as you get higher up into the universal logic, because you might not be able to sublate, it'll twist you into your opposite. So you'll think you're doing the right thing, but then in your beingness, you'll be doing the opposite. That's just how the path to hell is paved with good intentions. It happens to all of us. That's why I'm saying the only real cure here is the universal logic, whether it's like in the group right now or in the superstructure that forms around us as the new spirit. I'm saying that both those problems can only really be solved by one logic. And so I want to throw that out there right away and be radically honest right now before we do this deep dive to say there are a lot of contradictions at play right now that we are completely underestimating. And I think we need to start learning this universal logic like quick. Like all the machinery, all the fancy graphs, all the fancy talk, all that stuff, for me anyway, is really just to get the animal part of our brain stable enough to read and look at and try and integrate the true nature of ourselves as this immanent logic moving forward. And these young kids might be perfect, might even be a better ground because they don't have all these abstractions inside of them yet. They're still young enough that they could learn it to get there, because to get there, we actually have to do less. We actually have to forget some things to get to the essence. So now I feel like, okay, I covered the topics I wanted to talk. I hope I threaded everybody in. And the last piece is to bring Sienna in to say, does she have the secret sauce to sublate all of that? Or am I missing something? I hope I laid some fertile ground there.
Well, she raised her hand, Mark, but honestly, everyone's still here paying attention, so you're on the right track. But Sienna, go ahead. Thank you, my loves.
Okay, so thank you, Mark. I've been so excited. I've honestly been so excited since last week, just getting these conversations started. Now that I kind of really understand what each of you brings to the table, not all of you completely, but you know, the ones who talk a lot, like I do. I talk a lot. But yeah, Mark, this moment, this specific moment, and I can't speak enough about the specific alignment of just the conversation that we're having right now. It will have the impact of changing things moving forward, because once, you know, more than one person is, you know, having the same intention, the same intentional thought, it basically has its own ripple effect. So the larger these conversations become, the larger that ripple effect will become. So there's also a grand awakening happening right now, a global awakening because of many different factors. You know, we can have a different conversation about that. James, actually, if whoever would like to join in the future, James, I'm throwing a little plug here for you. James hosted his first spiritual awakening space the other night, and it was brilliant. And lots of people came on, and it was very profound. It was several people basically said this is one of the most important conversations I've ever had. And James is going to do that every Friday. So I'm just throwing in a plug for him because I think these conversations are important. It's and one of the things I said in the call was it's not only that we're having these spiritual experiences, it's what do we do with the fact that we're having these spiritual experiences, and we have a higher level of understanding about how to fix things that for whatever reason other people haven't figured out. So to me, and primarily because of my background and because I am very much an introverted, reclusive personality, you'd never know it because I've been an event planner my whole life. I could talk to anybody, but I typically choose not to. So not because I'm a snob, I got a lot in my brain. So with everything that I have mentioned before, and the fact that this is a presidential year, and I'm going to throw in a bunch of different factors and then kind of, you know, try to draw out the solution. So we have a collective of people kind of waking up to ask bigger questions, to want something more than what they're being offered. And what right now in the United States, what's being offered is kind of the lesser of two evils. We have Trump versus Biden. I mean, no matter what you think of politics, does not matter. Neither one of them is like, oh yeah, I'm so excited to vote for this person because they represent everything that this country should be about. It's just not happening. I don't think anybody could look at either one of them and not see their very obvious flaws. So the fact that we are kind of being forced into this situation of lesser or the voting for the lesser of two evils, we look at both sides of the party and see just rampant corruption, rampant, kind of like good old boy and good old girl networks. Those I was very, very much in the middle of those. So I'm very familiar with how they work and why things haven't really changed, because they are so firmly rooted in the way things are. So the way to me, I was going to list out a bunch of other things. What Mark was talking about with the Optimus robot. Well, I think he was just mentioning robotics in general, but Adrian Dittman, he's the one that I introduced last week. He holds a space that I've been on for 4 months now, pretty routinely. And the main thing they talk about is technology, advancements in technology and what that means for humanity. And he's basically polling for visionaries to help make sure exactly what Mark was saying, that the advancements in AI are towards the greatest good, towards the common good. And it doesn't, because it could just wipe all of us out. And Elon Musk is actually very, very aware of that. And again, whatever you think of Elon Musk, if someone like that is concerned about the future of AI and the future of robotics, then, just pay attention. So, but he is developing something called Optimus Robot. It will be on the market very soon. It is going to be within the next 2 years. It will be in most homes in the United States. It will be the equivalent of buying a 30K Tesla, and it will do your laundry. It will wash your dishes. It will set reminders for you. It will mop your floors. Yeah, like a 30K home model before the end of this century, or before the end of this decade. So with that being said,
When you're ready, Sienna, Doc Time did raise his hand, but when you're ready.
Okay, yeah, Doc, go ahead, because I've got a lot to say, and I don't want to tie up the whole call.
Thank you, Sienna.
No, it's really important that as we grow and get to bigger and bigger groups, it's going to be a merger process of already existing groups in parallel, not people just joining our group as a growth thing. And so getting our group philosophy to the point where we have an understanding of what's correct and what's not correct is something very important on the small scale to get right before we move to a big scale. And by the way, we're going to be bringing in people all the time on all scales. So the work that's doing now structurally, underpinning what we're doing, is important, and it has to be scalable. Universal logic is scalable. That's what makes it universal. So to go where Mark is leading down this path right now makes sense, because if we don't, we might miss a boat that will have already sailed even 2-3 weeks from now. But it's so important that we build in the system everybody's right to be heard. And what I think will happen is we'll have individual people who will represent groups of people, and we have to develop a trust of each other so that when Jamin goes out there and talks about an after party, we're showing up to the after party and going to make it something that's worth being at. And when we're here in the forum of setting up what it needs to be done, for me, I just scrap the whole existing system and start from scratch, ground one base level. But we can't really do that because it's a simultaneous world. But I, the political system badly needs reworking. There's other more fundamental systems. And I really think it's about flow of energy. As we get our flow of energy going, we'll have breakouts where each of us can do what we're here to do. And it seems to be working. Let's get our measurements right so that as it grows, the measurements are scalable. And I'll work with some people on that, but the universal group has to always check in with the individuals, make sure we're still on page. And if anybody has an objection, we need to hear it out.
Sienna, I don't know if you still have your hand up, but go ahead if you like.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll just speak quickly. Yeah, I mean, what the things that I speak of, yeah, I am never ever, and I've said this to I think lots of people individually, specifically Jamin yesterday. Yeah, I'm never trying to push an agenda. I like to bring up lots of ideas and see how they kind of fall into place with kind of what's already happening. What I see this group having the potential of is so broad reaching that if we can kind of factor all of it in now, and I like to think of like it's like turning to the last page of the book. I always say this, as my mother-in-law used to do that, which always drove me nuts, but she said, I have to see if it's worth it. I have to see, if it's got a good enough ending for it to make it worth it. So I always like to try to think of best case scenario, like, 10 years, what do we want to see? And then kind of fill in the blanks. So yeah, everything I'm talking about right now seems completely illogical, never been done. I mean, it's so much work. It's like, it's absurd. Why are we even having this conversation? But then when you talk to the youth of today who understand how to do everything and have literally had devices in their hands almost their entire lives, and are trying right now, they're asking why it is that, I mean, my oldest son's about to turn 18, and he's like, why are these the only two candidates? And I'm like, why indeed? And the youth is starting to question why things are the way they are. So, that's all it takes for, somebody to come in, or a group of people to come in and say, listen, you need SSL hours, which is hours that are required to graduate. It's hours that are given to community efforts, basically, volunteering. But say, listen, find ways, and you can do this on X. It can be an X, just a campaign on X saying, here are the problems. Find a group, and our group will give you SSL hours, which is free. It's free. It's like a free exchange. You're getting the brightest, youngest minds working on, projects for you. So you can say, hey, look at the traditional educational model in the United States. Where does it fail? Where does it succeed? Based on the rapid changes in AI and the fact that, people are going to have robots soon and be driving electric cars and flying cars and all this stuff. Oh, sorry. Yeah, honey. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Sienna, when you're ready, I will acknowledge that Michael raised
Yeah.
his hand while you were speaking as well. So
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to take my daughter to her game, so I'm gonna have
yeah,
to leave
understood.
in like 10 minutes. So
Well, Michael, go ahead while Sienna's still here because you raised her hand on her commentary.
Yeah, when I lived in Chicago in the '90s, my congressperson, the late great Sidney Yates, who was the longest serving congressperson in Congress at the time, he would send out a questionnaire to all of us constituents to fill out as to what areas of we would like to tackle. And I wonder if we could have like a polling methodology for when we gather as a group. I wonder if we're in bigger groups whether we had simple polling questions that we wanted to inquire about, whether as we're part of a Zoom room, whether it'd be easy just to jump off to fill out the poll, and maybe that'll attract more visitors if they're known to be heard through polling, and we could use such results for furthering our aims. Thank you.
Sienna, go ahead, my love.
Yeah, I would love to do like surveys. I was actually I was creating surveys at the beginning of COVID, or like the day after the lockdown started. I was sending out surveys to my friend group, basically trying to see what they predicted was gonna, I mean, how long we were gonna be on lockdown. My kids were out of school for a year and a half from it, but it was those kinds of questions and the answers, I'm fascinated by the human condition and what leads to specific trends or changes in public opinion. Just all those things. So just understand when I'm talking about these things, it's because I've gone down like millions of rabbit holes to get there. I love surveys though. And if that's one thing I would be very excited to create for the group is like surveys of how to solve specific issues. And then, I could actually, it would be a very easy thing to do to implement kind of a think tank group within Montgomery County specifically, because I basically know the administrators in most of the schools. And I was a volunteer within the school system for, 10 years. I know it like that was basically my career for free, was doing events and working very, very closely with one of the top school districts in the country. So if I went in there though and just they actually have an SSL volunteer like ideas board meeting every now and then. They say bring an idea to us and we'll turn it into. So it wouldn't even be work. And I understand what you guys are talking about. Like, oh my gosh, we are on this trajectory. Don't be throwing this wrench in and taking us completely off. This would be kind of like just something aside, because it has nothing to do. Well, it
Sienna,
will
just to be
eventually.
cognizant of your time,
Yeah.
I would like and
Yeah,
hope,
yeah.
I apologize for interrupting you, but can Jacob
Okay.
ask you a question?
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to get off in a second, but yeah,
No, I
please.
know, that's why I'm trying to jump the line, but Jacob, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, my comment was for Mark, but Sienna, it's really great to hear that there's these commonalities in the drive. Yeah, I think, well, maybe it is sort of a broad topic. I hope I don't take too much time with this.
Don't worry, hope's with us, Jacob. Take your time, my friend.
Right on. So I wanted to address the idea of universalities, especially in the context of a specter of the unknown. And I would present that this is a duality, that is inconsistent. If something is truly universal, then it is everywhere. And so, the specter of the unknown, should not exist. And Sienna, I think this drives the notion that we've been on, that a complete sampling is its own entity. It is distinct from a subsample, because merely the fact of it including all of the participants. Certainly some of the themes are going to be the same, but I think it's always going to be an emergent system. And this is why I tend to advocate for things at the scale of at least all the people on the planet, because that's a complete sort of representation, that isn't itself a subsample. So looking past like the two-party system, where do we start to go to handle the anarchy at the scale of the globe?
Okay, being cognizant of Sienna's time, Sienna, go ahead, pass it to Hope when you're done. And I see James has come up as well, but Sienna, go ahead. I know you have to go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I have so much to say to that. I don't even know where to start since I only have a couple of minutes. I'd actually love to have like a breakout group with Jacob and Mark if you guys are curious, because I think, you know, this is more of like a, you know, a futurist kind of conversation, and it might not be fully aligning with you know, what they're trying to do here. So, and Hope too. But I know Hope is so busy. Hope is so busy, and Mike and whoever else wants to join. I just think it's a separate conversation. So yeah, and I do
Yeah.
have to get out
Are
the
you
door.
going to be tapping out, my love?
I'm
I'll
sorry.
talk to you shortly. Are you going to be tapping out?
Oh yeah, I mean just yeah. I mean as soon as Sage comes back in, my daughter just has a game.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
Hope, are you wanting to speak, or did you lower your hand for a reason?
Yeah, so but Sienna has to go, and my stuff was directly related to what
Well,
was
she's
being.
not gone yet. If you want to kind
I'm not
of
going
like
anywhere.
lay
I
down
just can't
some
speak.
fodder here.
Hope,
Yeah.
I'll be listening.
Right.
I
Okay.
just
But Hope,
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then I'll get
okay,
to Hope. You go ahead and then pass it to James when you're ready.
Yeah, I will
yeah,
be here listening, Hope.
yeah. I was just gonna at that point, then maybe we could talk offline or something. Um, uh, there's like so many different thoughts in regards to what you're talking about for the school, but also for the election, because there are two really big discussions. So it's like the thing is, a lot of times when, like, say, trying to get where people like know what the real votes are, um, and we have the technology to do something like that, is something as simple as in getting people excited about voting, and then being like doing a social media wave where people go in and they vote and they show who they voted for, and they make a little video, and everybody's kind of doing that and be like, I'm so excited, this is what I did. And there's like, on one hand, it's a way of having an absolute record that cannot be questioned, like, and you're not wondering like, did that take place or did not take place? What did the computer really say? Did the computer really tell the truth? To that degree, as because we're only getting the humans telling us what the outputs actually were. But at the same time, you have like the safety issues, especially like maybe not so much in some countries, but this could definitely grow into like a thing to where people feel pressured to vote a very specific way. If they're being bullied or if they're being pressured. I know in a lot of areas, like especially during the pandemic during the last few years, is like in California, it was like um if you didn't have certain things philosophically and aligned to what was being recommended, then you were considered like an evil person. You would lose your job. You might not even be able to stay in your home. There were so many like implications to that. So it's like it's really hard, I think, in a lot of ways, even with technology, to get, is that someone's true sense or somebody's true understanding that they're bringing forward to the group? Or are they agreeing with the group because they feel further implications and putting measures in place that can account for some of these kind of disparities? And I do believe we can innovate towards that direction. There is a way, there is an answer for that, but it's just I don't think that that conversation has truly been met. I think what usually ends up happening is one, they see that it is a problem, and so they want to close the conversation altogether. Or two, what ends up happening is people feel like it's not a problem at all, and they just want to go forward with the technology, or they want to go forward with the implementation of certain things, instead of saying, okay, we know how humanity works. It's going to be a problem. Okay, what are different things that we can do? It won't be perfect. It won't be, we might be able to start off with like maybe even like a 40% success rate. But as we get more data, as we learn more, we're going to keep adapting and growing, and we can get at least to that maybe 70 to 80% to where that's the greater success measure. And that has been more than we've ever had in human history.
When you're ready, Hope. Sienna, if you want to jump in, but James has had his hand up.
No, by all means, let Sienna respond.
No, she said no. She's busy getting out the door. Go ahead, James, and then pass it to Jamie when you're ready.
Okay, no bother. I'll pop on for a second anyway. Yeah, I love what you're saying there, Hope, and Sienna as well. But somewhere along the line when I'm in there to make a cup of tea, I find it that the subject, I get what Sienna is on about, and they're kind of specific topics in a sense, like specifically political and US topics. So in relation to, what Jacob came in and saying, like, it's like more, he's thinking more universal, like, so which is what I thought what we're all doing in a sense. So I just think like that. Yeah, I mean, by all means, I'm not saying anything about what you said, and all your ideas are fantastic, and I think that your great ideas for starting groups, as you said, is your feel, your thing, like, and that's a brilliant thing, because that's an essential part of what we're trying to create anyway, because we all have our specific, individual talents, so to speak, like. And I don't even know what I bring to the table other than that I'm here because I've been here a long time in this room, and I'm here for the specific, which is saving and healing, transforming life on earth for the greater good of all life on earth, and with the hope of that we can actually get our shit together and do it in time. So I earlier on, Dave, sorry, Mark, earlier on you were saying, like, what we're starting here has to be grounded in universal truth, and that is essential, and I believe that wholeheartedly as well. And also that, like what Jacob was saying as well, I heard Jacob mentioning this, a number of different, like, if it was based on this, we just say, just for instance, now, like Sienna brought up, if it was based on politics, or if it was based on another subject, such as, so finding out what really is encompassing everything is what we're trying to start. Something that is going to universally take off, be with a universal, starting with that universal truth, and also encompassing the spiritual and everything within that. But we have to be specific. We have to, like, I believe that we all have the essential parts of the machine ourselves. That we're creating. We're all essential parts of this machine we're creating. That's what I say. And we're looking for the other parts to get it, to get it working to a full capacity. So I think we have what we need in a sense. And pardon the pun, but rather than beating around the bush, I think what we should do is define what it is we're trying to create. I think, like, what it is, we among us here, like, we need to literally define in a way that makes sense to all of us and encompasses all of what we want here. You know what I'm saying? And I think that under that, really, like, I mean, let's put it like my universal truth is my global warming is the biggest issue as far as I'm concerned, because everything else falls under that umbrella. If we don't deal with that one major thing, and even the wars that are starting to break out are symptoms of that one global warming issue, the main topic. It's a universal, peer-reviewed, universally peer-reviewed, starting off with the best of science. You can prove that what we're talking about is universally true, peer-reviewed, universally true. The subject is that, we are after putting our planet in jeopardy, and it is, on an exponential, run away. And we're very nearing, or have neared, or have gone over, if you listen to Paul Beckwith, a number of tipping points already. If we don't address that one main topic, all else is mute underneath it, is what I say. No, I don't want to be a parrot and something like that or anything. But what I'm saying is, I think we've got a lot of very fantastic, brilliant minds here. Everybody has their specific niche, so to speak. But I think what we should do is, someone said it a while ago, we should kind of maybe do a poll here as to what each and every one of us are here specifically. What is in our minds, in our individual minds and our own thoughts, in a couple of minutes or 1 minute, what would we hope to get out of this?
When you're ready, James, you've raised Jamin and Mark's hand, but when you're ready.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I'm just saying, I think it's time for us to, rather than beating around the bush and describing what it is and what it can be, and it depends on whether it's starting off with this, or it depends on whether it has this or incorporates this. Let's see what it is we want to define and build ourselves now, and see what the commonalities are in each of what of us are saying. For me, my part, it's about saving our life on earth, as and getting our acting together as quickly as possible, and everything else will have to be fixed in order to do that. You know what I mean? The political system, the educational system, everything, our spirituality, everything will have to be addressed when we come to face the truth of the universal truth, that we don't look up we're not going to see the sky falling. I'll leave it at that. Pass on the feather.
Jamin, I believe it's our illustrious host, and then Mark, when you're ready.
All right. Well, I would like to make a motion that as soon as Mark completes whatever he has to say, that we actually do exactly what James suggested. And I'd leave it up to Mark to do the timing, keep track of time, and keep us moving along because he's the most experienced in a proper way to do that. That's all I have to say right now. So go ahead, Mark. And then also, please, Mark, would you be willing to, to help, kind of host and manage that process if you agree with it? And if you disagree, just feel free to disagree and say why. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm getting some shivers here, like 3-4 times. Like, ooh, that's really resonating with me. It's getting exciting. That's what spirit feels like. Like we're just like our true capacity. We're barely, like we're almost dead in terms of our current spirit. Like we're like holding on to life support. It feels like we're getting a little glimmer of what our ancestors were probably feeling, a little bit closer to the source. So yeah, so where do we start here? And it's got to be a paradigm shift. It's got to be a whole thing. It's like everything has to be addressed, like James was saying. And luckily, universal logic does that. Can I help mediate the conversation to get there? Yes, I think the ever-living meetings is what we have to do. But here's the first problem: is usually it's like what Doc Time was saying, that the best conversations happen in around 5 to 6 to 8 people, and once you get bigger than that, people don't have enough speaking time to feel heard. So you want everybody to have ideally around somewhere between 8 to 10 minutes of talking time so they can get complete thoughts out. There's like a completeness to thoughts in terms of universal logic. There's 3 parts to all true universal thoughts, and it's called the notion. It has a universal part, it has a particular part, and an individual part. And these things sound so abstract. Like, what does that even mean? I was there about a couple of years ago, but now it makes total sense to me. We have to reorganize our politics, our education, our spiritual systems. All these things are really need to be reoriented in these 3 elements, is what they're called. So I feel like that's a nice place to start. If I could get enough timers going, then it would work. So I could try, and this is the first time I would be able to do like an ever living meeting with this many people. So give me a second to like maybe get it set up here. This is kind of exciting. I'm supposed to go to a men's indigenous homeless outreach group. And so I'm trying to get the indigenous on board here. So I'm wondering if I can get the timers going. If somebody can catch on to what I'm doing, I could pass the timers to them, like maybe Marco. And then Marco, this could be the 24-hour meeting that doesn't actually stop. It's an ever living meeting. As long as somebody is there to run the timers, we can track time across meetings. That's something that we were going to try tonight. So yeah, I'm very interested in doing that, Jamin. Number 2 is any problems, any concerns. We have to get the spirit license set up, because the value that's going to flow from this can't be in the old way. That even the business thing, the entrepreneurship that we're doing also has to be transformed. So I think that that's licensing and like IP, intellectual property. If we're really giving all of our ideas to this, then we have to reciprocate in a way that people don't feel like they're being left behind. And that's a universal activity. The universal isn't just commonality, it's actually a movement as well. And so I feel like if we're in the universal movement, then nobody gets left behind because everybody's recognized. So I feel like as long as we got that going, the spirit license should take care of that. And Jamin, you being in the business world, you might be one of the best situated to do that, along with Sienna and her husband, actually. So maybe bringing Peter in. So I'll get the timers kind of set up here, and then maybe I'll start tracking, and then we should go ideally in blocks of like an hour, because then I can like do the timers. Well, hold on here. Actually, hold on. Let me calculate this.
Jamin did raise his hand, Mark, so you can do that while Jamin speaks, I suppose.
Yeah, let me process for a second, because I could use the whole. I just remember that the block party is like 24 hours, not just an hour. So if we divide the time up in terms of the 24 hours, actually it could work out. So anyway, let me process that. What do you got there for us, Jamin?
Yeah, so while I'm not at all opposed to what you're suggesting, I might have a different suggestion. What I was actually requesting was something completely different from that, which was simply, very simply, that we take the next, 15 minutes, 1 minute for each person who's here, and let them articulate an answer to James's question. which is, what do you think our objective, our telos, if you will, should be? And so I would suggest we just let each person speak. When they get to the 1 minute mark, you kind of wave at them. When they get, to the minute and a half mark, you say, time, please wrap up. And at a minute 45, you just mute them. All right. Because if you can't say it in a minute, wait until the end of the session and think about it and really work on it so that you can get it down to a minute. Anyway, that's what I was suggesting, and I'm happy to manage that. It's just simply a matter of, I've got the timer right here on one of my devices, but that's what I was suggesting, passing the feather back.
Okay, I think it's Spirit coming through and almost giving me an opportunity to get the timers in here of the real ELMs. But you're right, we could do it the simple way, but if we do it this way, we can actually start tracking people's turns over time and seeing who has the most speaking time overall, and then rebalancing by the end of the block party. I don't know, something like this feels right. Because if it's truly a universal meeting, everybody should, in the end, have their truth come into the meeting, right? And that will take some time, right? So, I mean, that's what we're protecting here, is we're being the universal as we're creating and discovering the universal. So that's what I'm trying to protect here, because we have to be in some way the solution as we're making more of the solution. And what ends up happening is you start these groups, and then the contradictions start ripping you apart, because James just said, he thinks it's about climate change, but somebody else is like, no, it's about AI. Like, what's the point in doing the climate if an AI enslaves all of us and then we can't do anything about climate anyway? And the AI thing's happening in like 6 months. So, I mean, time-wise, somebody might be like, okay, I can't be a part of this group. I'm going to another group. These guys don't get it. Like, those types of contradictions are spiraling right now. And some people are like, wow, I haven't even talked in like 2 hours. Like, I feel like I'm being left behind already. All these types of subconscious conversations are happening right now. So I feel like we got to rein it in a bit and just saying everybody gets the same amount of time, not even just for this vote, but maybe by the end of the block party, then we might start, getting to the feeling of justice. That's what I feel like there's a crack here to try that. So I'm going to experiment. But yeah, Jamin, while I'm getting this all set up, if you want to do like the normal 1 minute timer thing, then I'll try and create a timer for each person's name and then calculate how much time do we have left to the end of the block party, which ends at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Is that right?
Yeah, but at the same time, Mark, I don't think each and every person here is committed to taking it all the way through to, the 24-hour mark. But anyway, so I don't know what to suggest from there, but I am very keen on, just kind of getting past, the textbook, if you will, and getting right to letting people talk, right? So if you want to set up timers, I can manage that. I'm just suggesting, or if you have more to say, back to you, Mark.
Yeah, maybe what I'll do is I'll just try and do it myself, and like I'll try doing it behind the scenes. But yeah, I guess I could try and do the timers thing, but I feel like there's something else happening here. So I'll do this round, and then maybe James has something to say. But yeah, maybe 1 minute. I do have these timers. You can see the timer on the screen if you want. I think Zoom has a timer, but I don't know how to use it. But Marco, if you gave me screen permissions to share, you can see these timers on the side here. And then it's kind of cool. You can see each person going.
Can we let Hope speak? Because she has to go. Maybe let her go first.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll do the timing in the meantime. Hope, go ahead if that's if you're game.
Yeah, sorry, I can only really do from like 12 to 2. So I want you guys to finish, Mark, explaining what you guys are going to be doing, and then kind of be able to go into it. So I don't want to waste
Well,
any of your
James also raised his hand on this, Jamin. Not to interrupt you, Hope, but I think you're paying attention. But James, go ahead.
No, let Hope speak because she was saying she was going, so I'm quite willing to wait. No problem. Carry on, Hope.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't have my hand up or anything. I was just leaving. You guys have a wonderful meeting. I look forward to hearing about this. Like maybe next time we could do something like this at the beginning. That gives us a lot of times to talk with everyone in, and it starts off small, and then more people come in, and we'll get more of also a practice of the rhythm, how groups grow over time, and that might be helpful as well. But the most urgent issue, I think, pressing upon humanity is a combination between environment and AI. They seem to be racing for it. And I do believe that space is actually intrinsically, especially the way that the technology is already in place and universally, humanity seems to already be in place for it, can be an answer for both. I love you guys, and I hope that you have a phenomenal rest of your meeting.
Thanks, Hope.
Thank you, Hope.
James, go back to you if you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just saying that, sure, we just established, I think we have anyway, but I was saying that what Mark was suggesting, I think you should go ahead and do it, but maybe just break, as you said, you need a block of time. So rather than the 24-hour period, we could still break it down to maybe an hour between us or an hour and a half or whatever, because we can carry this over into the, the afterglow, so to speak. These, each person's individual, say or whatever. So we could break it down into 10-minute blocks, 5-minute blocks. Somebody might only want to say something in a couple of sentences, you know what I mean? So we don't really know what anyone's going to say. I was only suggesting it as because like for me, well, I'll leave it till I'm speaking in a minute, but basically I think it's a great idea. What Jamin is saying is let's do just a quick vote here between us.
All I was going to say there, James, I apologize for interrupting, and Marco did raise his hand. I know we started a bit late, but we are actually on like a perfect hour and a half kind of bookend recording. Marco, you might be raising your hand to say the same thing. And then we could restart another recording and try out what Mark wants if he has some time. Yeah, okay. Marco, go ahead. I see people nodding.
Perfect.
Yeah, I had like 2 points. Mark, it's like we're looking at this many people right now. And then I don't know what happens, but suddenly somebody says, well, I've got to go. And we're down to 2 in a couple hours from now. And maybe we'll build some more up and there'll be new people. So I don't know how that works with the timers over a longer period.
Well, I think probably we should bookend the start is near now. And then try and do while we have everyone here and everyone's still got some stamina in them, we actually try this out. But Jamin, if you want to or Mark, go ahead and then pass it to Jamin and he can end this recording and we'll do that.
Yeah, see, that's a great question, Marco. That's where we're at. Is okay, now how do we actually get the timers worked out with lots of people? That's the scaling problem. That's like dividing up the groups and all this stuff that Doc Time was talking about, I think. Functional groups versus these bigger groups and all this. And that's why I think time comes in now to solve this problem. How do we, I guess on the timer, I started a 90-minute timer already. And then what I'm going to do is there's 14 of us. And if we go 90 minutes divided by 14 gives us the time to speak for each person. But if it's not enough time, people can be like, hey, I don't really want to speak. You can donate your time to somebody else. And then maybe we will get a couple of speakers with time. And then by the end of this meeting, we'll have a good test of what happens when you have a lot of speakers in a bigger functional group. I don't know, Doc Time, if that resonates with you, but.
Since I have 2 devices, do I get double time? Does each device get time?
I saw that. No. I believe that's part of the corruption in our current political system. We have to stop it here. But I can try and run them. So let me do some calculations. So
well, Jamin, go ahead. Yeah, Jamin, go ahead. Sorry, Doc, go ahead.
It was actually 15 minutes ago that James made his suggestion. If we had just done it, use a 1-minute timer like I suggested, let everyone talk, we would have been done by now. So I'm just saying, let's really question the utility. I think we're hitting diminishing returns by talking about how we might actually do it. Why don't we just take off our clothes and fucking do it, passing the feather?
Yeah, I think he's right. So I think we should do this 1-minute little vote thing, get that out of the way, and then I'll do the timers while we're doing that. And then if we want to do the second piece, then we can try that.
Okay, so I volunteer to manage it, but I'll defer to anyone else who wants to manage it. I'm game if no one else is. But if somebody else wants to, please do it.
Yeah, Doc, you were going to say something there prior to that. Do you want to say something there, Doc?
Yeah, I think we should close off this show and move to the next show to do it.
I agree. Let's end this easily on, as Mike said, a bookend.
Ending this recording in 3, 2, 1.